job came to me the way the bad ones always do, which is to say it came cheap, it came late in the season, and it came from a man who would not meet my eyes when he described it. His name was Coyle, and he ran the county's parcel office out of a building that had been a bank once and still had the vault. Its round door propped open with a fire extinguisher and full of nothing but folding chairs. He had a face like a fist that had been left in water too long, soft and pale and permanently clenched. And when I came in, he was already standing, already holding a folder against his chest, with both arms, the way you hold a thing you would rather set down and cannot. "You're the surveyor," he said. "I'm a surveyor. There's more than one of me in the state." "You're the one who answered." That was true, and it was the whole of my qualification. I had been 3 weeks between jobs, which for a man in my line of work in that part of the country meant 3 weeks of watching my truck's fuel gauge and doing arithmetic I did not enjoy. The listing had been 4 lines long. Boundary reestablishment and monumentation, closed traverse, forested parcel, prior control exists, pay in full on completion. It had not said what the parcel was for, and it had not said why a closed traverse a survey that returns to its own beginning and shuts like a ring needed re-establishing when the corners were, per the listing already said. I should have read more into that. A man learns the shape of his own hindsight the way he learns the shape of his hands. "Sit," Coyle said, and I sat, and he did not. He put the folder on the desk between us, but he kept one hand flat on top of it, and he talked to the wall over my shoulder. "There's a parcel out past the neck," he said. "You know the neck? I know it's a place people say instead of a place I've been. It's real. Road goes to gravel, then gravel goes to dirt, then the dirt gives up. Parcel's past where the dirt gives up. It's 160 acres more or less, and it's forest, and it's been surveyed before, 3 times before that I have paper on. Maybe more that I don't. 3 times. I sat with that. That's a lot of survey for 160 acres of trees nobody's going to build on. "Nobody's going to build on it," he agreed too quickly, like I'd offered him a rope. "So what's the work?" He took his hand off the folder then, and I understood that had been the hard part for him, the letting go. And everything after would be easier because he'd already crossed the thing he'd been dreading. "The line's got to be remarked," he said. "The whole loop. Every monument checked. Every one that's fallen or gone put back exactly where it was. The blazes on the trees freshened. The line cut clear where it's grown in. And I need it closed. I need the traverse to close inside 1/10 of a foot. And I need you to walk me the whole ring on paper and show me it shuts." I opened the folder. Inside was a plat, an old one, drawn by hand in the careful dead lettering of a man who'd learned drafting in a schoolroom with a ruler across his knuckles. It showed the parcel, and the parcel was wrong in a way I felt before I could name. A boundary, when it's honest, tends toward the rationale. It follows a road, a ridge, a creek, a section line the government laid down a century and a half ago with chains and sweat and whiskey. It has reasons. This one had none I could see. It was a closed loop, yes, but it did not follow anything. It bent where there was nothing to bend around. It came to sharp interior angles in the middle of what the topo line said was flat, unbroken ground. It bulged outward in one place and pinched inward in another, and the two did not balance, did not answer each other the way a natural feature would make them answer. It was a shape a man draws when he is drawing around something rather than along something. And it was tight. That was the other thing. For 160 acres, the perimeter was enormous, far longer than it needed to be, as though whoever laid it had been unwilling to let the line run straight for any distance, as though every straight run was a risk they weren't willing to take. "Who drew this?" I said. "First one to survey it, fellow named Estelle, 1941. And the second, third, same line every time, that's the thing." Coyle sat down at last, which told me we were now in the part he'd wanted to reach. Every surveyor that's gone out there remarked the exact same loop. Nobody's ever adjusted it. Nobody's ever said, "This corner's wrong, it should be over here." Every one of them walked out, found the old line, and put it back. Tighter, if anything. Estelle's loop is the loosest of the three. The last one, 79, that one's the tightest. Whoever did 79 took in less ground than Estelle did, pulled the line in. "That's not how reestablishment works," I said. "You don't pull a line in. You find where it was and you put it back where it was. If you pull it in, you've made a new boundary and you've committed a crime." "I know," Coyle said. "I know how it works." And he looked at me then, finally, straight on. And his water-soft face was frightened in a way that made me stop being annoyed with him. That's what I'm telling you. 3 men who knew how it works, and every one of them pulled the line in. And I need you to go out there and find out why, and then I need you to do it too. I want to be fair to the man I was, sitting in that repurposed bank with a dead extinguisher holding open a vault full of chairs. I was not a fool. I heard in what Coyle said the shape of something I did not want. But I also had a fuel gauge, and I had arithmetic, and I had a lifetime of believing that land is land, that dirt does what dirt does, and that a boundary is a human idea laid over indifferent ground and cannot be anything more than that. I believed a line was a description. That was the whole of my error. And I'd been raised in it, and it had never once failed me until it did. "Pay in full on completion," I said. "Half now," Coyle said, and reached into the desk, and that told me everything about how badly he wanted a body sent out there that his own budget wouldn't stretch to justify. The dirt gave up exactly where he'd said it would. I left the truck at the end of it, nose against a berm of old pushed-up earth that had gone to grass and blackberry, and I loaded out on foot. The total station in its case on my back, the tripod, the prism pole, the machete and the paint and the roll of flagging, the field book, water, the plat sealed in a plastic sleeve against the damp. The neck was a real place, and it did not want me. That's the honest way to say it. The last mile of walkable ground was a corridor of alder and hazel, so close it touched me on both shoulders at once, and the light came down green and used up, filtered through too many layers to be any good by the time it reached me. And then the corridor opened, and I was at the line. You would not have known it was a line if you hadn't been sent to find one. But I had been, and I did. There is a look an old boundary gets in the forest, a scar that heals wrong. The trees along it were the wrong ages. On one side, my side, the outside, the woods were ordinary second growth, 60, 70 years of it, the kind that follows logging or fire. On the other side, the inside, the trees were older, much older. Not a gradual change, not a soft ecological gradient of the sort that takes a quarter mile to happen. a wall, a step. Big dark trunks starting exactly where the small pale ones stopped, as sudden as a property fence, except there was no fence and never had been. Only the line, only the idea of the line, and somehow the trees on either side of the idea had grown up obeying it. I found the first monument 20 feet in, where the plat said it would be. It was a length of iron pipe driven into the ground, capped and around it, blazed into the bark of 4 separate trees at chest height, were the marks. A horizontal cut, and above it a second, the double blaze that means this tree stands on the line. The blazes were old. They'd been freshened, though. You could read the layers of it, the way you read the rings of a stump, a first cut grown half over, then recut again. 3 generations of the same wound, reopened in the same place by 3 different hands. Estelle, and then whoever came between. Then 79. I set up over the pipe, leveled the tripod, and began. The work of it I could do in my sleep, and for the first day, that's nearly what I did. You occupy a known point, you sight the next, you record angle and distance, you move up, you do it again. A traverse, it is a chain of triangles you build with your own careful attention, and at the end of it, if you've been honest and your instrument is true, the chain comes back and meets its own beginning, and the tiny distance by which it fails to meet the misclosure tells you how much error you've let creep in. A good traverse closes within 1/100th of a foot over miles. A bad one gapes. I built my chain along the old line, monument to monument, blaze to blaze. And the line was strange, exactly as strange as the plat had promised, bending where nothing was, angling for no reason. But it was findable. Every corner Estelle had set and every corner the men after him had reset, I found, and my instrument agreed with their paper to within the tolerance of honest men working 40 and 80 years apart. It was in the technical sense a good line. Somebody had laid it with enormous care. Somebody had wanted it exact. It was late on the first day, with the green light going gray, that I noticed the ground. I was moving up to the 9th monument, walking the line itself as you do, keeping the blazed trees at my shoulder. And I realized I'd been walking on bare earth for some time. Not a path, nothing so deliberate as a path. But along the line in a band maybe 3 feet wide, nothing grew. On the outside of it, my second growth. On the inside, the old dark trees and their deep litter of needles and leaf. But on the line, in that 3-foot band that ran the entire enormous loop, the ground was bare and packed and faintly warm. I crouched and put my hand flat against it, and it was warmer than the air, warmer than the shade had any right to leave it, the temperature of a thing recently living. And it was smooth, packed smooth, the way a trail gets packed, the way ground gets when something walks it over and over, back and forth, for a very long time. Something had been pacing my line, on the inside of it, the whole way around. I stood up too fast and the blood went out of my head, and in the gray leaving light I looked in past the blazed trees into the old woods, and I saw nothing and I heard nothing, and the nothing was so total that it was its own kind of sound. No birds. I noticed it then and could not unnotice it. All day I'd had my second growth birds on the outside, chickadees, a jay complaining somewhere behind me, the small constant business of ordinary woods. Inside the line, silence. Not the silence of empty woods, the silence of woods where everything that could leave has left, and everything that stayed is holding still. I did not finish to the 9th monument. I turned around and I walked back to my truck in the last of the light, with the total station banging my spine. And I did not run because I told myself there was nothing to run from, and I have never in my life lied to myself so loudly. I slept in the truck. I want that understood because it matters for what came after. I did not make camp in the woods. I drove back down the dirt and the gravel to where I could see a farmhouse light across a field. And I put the truck's nose toward that light like a child, and I slept in the cab with the doors locked, which is a thing I have never done in 20 years of sleeping rough on job sites. And I woke twice with my heart going and no reason I could name. In the morning, I called Coyle from the 1 bar of signal the farmhouse field would give me. "The line's been walked," I said, "on the inside. There's a track worn the whole way around on the inside of the loop, packed bare. You know anything about that?" The pause on his end was long enough that I checked the phone hadn't dropped. "Estelle wrote about it," Coyle said finally, "in his notes. Not the plat, the field book. I've got his field book." He called it the pacing. He said the ground inside the line was worn and he couldn't account for it. "Send me the field book." "I can't send it. It doesn't leave the office." And before I could argue, "But I'll read you the part." "Hold on." Paper sounds. The small violence of a man's thick fingers turning old pages. Then, in Coyle's flat, frightened voice, another man's words from 1941. "The ground inside the boundary is worn as though paste, in a band following the line entire. I set my corners and left the loop open on the north where the creek would naturally have carried it, thinking to save myself the labor of the crossing. In the night I heard it come to the opening. I do not have another word. It came to the opening and it stood in the gap, and I felt it the way you feel a draft from a door you thought was shut. In the morning I closed the north. I ran the line across the creek and I shut the loop. The pacing did not stop, but it stayed in. A boundary is not a description. I had this wrong my whole working life. A boundary is a decision that the ground agrees to keep. I do not know why this ground agrees. I know that it does, and I know the loop must be closed, and I know it must be tight because a loose loop gives the thing inside it room. And room is all it wants. And if it is ever given enough room, the loop will not be around it anymore. It will be around us. Coyle stopped reading. I listened to the field static and the wind moving the alder, and far off, an ordinary rooster doing its ordinary job at the ordinary farmhouse. And I thought about how much I wanted to be at that farmhouse, drinking their coffee, being a man to whom none of this was happening. "Why tight?" I said. He says tight. Why does it have to be tighter every time? "I don't know," Coyle said. "You do. You hired 3 men before me to pull it in, and you hired me to pull it in again, and you know why you didn't." He was quiet. Then he said, "Because it grows. Whatever's in there. It's bigger than it was in 41. The loop that fit it then doesn't fit it now. Every survey, whoever goes out, finds the line too loose, finds slack, finds the pacing track has drifted outward, finds the thing has room it didn't have, and they pull the line in to take the room back. They fit the loop to the thing. That's the job. That's always been the job. You're not reestablishing a boundary, you're taking in a garment that the body's outgrowing." He laughed once with no humor at all. and you keep taking it in because the day you can't take it in anymore is the day it doesn't fit at all. And then, Estelle put it in the field book, Coyle said. Then the loop's not around it, then it's around us.